There are times when we fool ourselves into thinking we can toy with someone's heart and walk away untouched, but the brutal truth is, by the time we grasp what we've truly thrown away, it's already far beyond reach. I used to believe I had everything under control. My name is Haley, and I was with a man most women would consider a dream come true. Damon was calm, effortlessly funny, and had this way of looking at me like I was the only soul in the universe. For 3 years, he loved me with a tenderness that felt like home, steady, comforting, and warm, like a familiar fire on a freezing night. But when you've grown addicted to chaos, comfort can start to feel like a cage. It began innocently. A few flattering comments from strangers. Whenever I posted a photo, I never deleted them. Damon never asked me to. He had faith in me. That was his first mistake. Then Lucas entered the picture. He worked in the same office, always armed with the perfect words to make a woman feel desired. Unlike Damon, who asked me about my day and genuinely listened, Lucas complimented me endlessly on my looks, my smile, the way I walked, and slowly, I started craving that attention. At first, I told myself it was nothing serious. I didn't mention the casual lunches or the texts that came after midnight. I didn't say how his touch lingered a little too long. I convinced myself that Damon wouldn't understand, that I needed this excitement, this spark, and that none of it meant I loved him any less. But that wasn't true. One Friday evening, with Damon away for a business trip, Lucas invited me over. I accepted, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I told myself it would be casual, just drinks, just a conversation. It was more than that. The next morning, sitting on Lucas's bed with sunlight creeping through the blinds, I felt nothing but cold inside. Not shame, not thrill, just an empty, aching numbness. When Damon returned, I put on a perfect act. I kissed him, I laughed at his stories. I played the role like I was born for it, but guilt has a way of seeping through the cracks. It showed in how I flinched at his touch, in the way my voice trembled when I spoke to Izzy. He didn't say anything. Maybe he didn't notice, or maybe he did, and just didn't want to believe it. The next time I saw Lucas, it wasn't by accident. I had already crossed that invisible line. What was one more step? Then came a third time. Then more texts, photos, a hotel key tucked in my purse that Damon never once questioned. I started getting reckless. Lucas said the danger made it more exciting, that I made him feel alive, and I felt wanted again. In a way I hadn't in months. Not because Damon stopped trying. I simply stopped letting him in. One night, I came home later than usual. Damon was sitting on the couch, pale, his hands shaking as he held my phone. "Who's Lucas?" he asked. Everything inside me froze. My heart slammed against my ribs as I watched him scroll through messages I thought I had erased. Photos? Screenshots? The evidence was all there. I tried to speak, to twist the truth into something he might believe. But he didn't yell. He didn't cry. That silence was worse than any outburst. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. "You could have just told me you weren't happy," he whispered. "I would have done anything for you, Haley. Anything." That night, he packed a small bag and walked out. I stayed behind, alone in our bedroom, surrounded by the wreckage of a life I had set fire to. The silence that followed was unbearable. Lucas thought this meant we could finally be together. He acted like he'd won, but I couldn't even look at him. He wasn't a prize. He was a reflection of every broken part of me I refused to confront. I blocked his number a week later. I tried to reach Damon, wrote letters, sent emails. I even waited outside his office like someone desperate for scraps of hope. But he didn't rage, he didn't lash out. He just looked me in the eyes and said, "I can't spend the rest of my life wondering if you're lying. I loved you too much for that." That shattered me more than anything else. Months passed. I saw him once at a cafe. He was laughing, sitting across from a woman. She touched his arm gently. The way I used to. My stomach twisted. He didn't notice me. Or maybe he did and just didn't care anymore. I'll never know. People assume cheating is just one bad decision, one weak night. But it isn't. It's a slow unraveling. One selfish choice after another. And each time, I stepped further away from the only person who had ever truly loved me. I like to believe I've changed, that I wouldn't make the same mistake again. But growth doesn't undo what's been lost. And love doesn't always give you a do-over. Damon was my last chapter. I just didn't realize it until the book had already burned. Sometimes we don't see the worth of what we hold until it slips between our fingers. But by then, the damage is done. And what's gone is gone forever.